Alright, so here we are in Visual Studio. Today we're going to do some practice with printf and scanf. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to make sure it's a Win32 console application. I'm going to browse to the location where I want to put it, and I'm just going to call this printf scanf practice. So again, this is not a teaching video. This is just a reference video, so you need to be keeping up with the class, but just for reference, if you want some reference on printf and scanf, you can take a look at this video to help you. So now I need to go project, add new item, and I will call this io practice.c, and that's just the name of my source code. I add it to my project. Now instead of having to type everything in, I can go into one of the code examples on Blackboard and copy and paste that code into my compiler, and that way I'm sure that I have the right code in there. So I don't have any spelling errors on the preprocessor directives and stuff, which of course I messed up. So let's do that again. All right. So copy and paste this into the compiler. And I'm just going to get rid of the part I don't need. So I have my preprocessor directives, my header, and my main function here. And here I'm just going to change this to say printf and scanf practice. And I will build it and test it to make sure that it's working. I have a lot of warnings here because I have a lot of variables I'm not using. And I'm just going to go over again. We have integers. So I'm going to declare a couple of integers. And keep in mind that for printf, the placeholder for integer is %d. And for scanf, the placeholder for integer is also %d. And then I'll declare a couple doubles here. And for printf, the placeholder for double is %f, and you can format that when you print it onto the screen, how many decimal places. And for scanf, it is %lf. And then I have a couple of characters here. And for printf is %c is the placeholder, and for scanf, you have to hit the space bar and then %c. So we're going to do a little practice with scanf. I'm going to scan in a character from the keyboard. So remember that when you're using scanf, you want to use the ampersand. So I will scan in a character from the keyboard. I'm going to do a space %c, and then after the quotations I put a comma, ampersand, and the name of the variable. So let's scan into the variable letter. Now once I make a few changes, it's always a good idea to test, so I'm going to build it and run it and see what happens. And as you can see, my window here just has a little blinking cursor because I have not told the user what to enter. So always when you use printf and scanf, always when you use scanf, you want to make sure it's preceded by a prompt. So I will now add a prompt which tells the user what to enter. Enter a letter. So when I test it now, I forgot my ampersand here, so I have to remember to put I forgot the semicolon at the end of that. So now when I test it, it tells the user what to enter. Enter a letter. They enter a letter. And that's all the program does so far. So far it's working. Now I'd like to get a letter, and I'd like to get a double. So I'm going to ask the user now to enter a double. And then I'm going to scan into a double. Remember to use %lf. And I will get a double. And I'm also going to get an integer. So to get an integer, I use %d. So now I'm going to test this and make sure it works. enter a letter, E, enter a double, 4.6, and enter an integer, 2. So now I've successfully asked for a letter, a double, and an integer. And now I'm just going to print these back onto the screen. Usually when I print back onto the screen, I always like to put a little bit of a message. So you entered. And I have a character, an integer, and a double, so I can put them in any order I want, but I have to make sure that my arguments match the placeholder. So the placeholder for an integer is %d. For a double, it would be %, and I can format it, so like %.2f. And for a character, it is %c. So I have 3 placeholders, which means after the quotation in my printf statement, I need to put variables that match or expressions that match the data type of the placeholder. So the first placeholder is an integer, so I have an integer, num1. The second is a double, so I have a double. And the third is a character, so I have a character. And this is a statement, so it ends with a semicolon. I will build it and test it. And I enter a letter, I enter a double, I enter an integer, and then the integer, the double, and the character are all printed onto the screen. And when I go to print things, I will notice that I do need to add some formatting. Another thing that you can do with printf is in your printf statement, you can use a mathematical expression. So for example, if I wanted to print the square of the number is %d, then I could square the integer that's been entered, num1, into a mathematical expression, which would be num1 times num1. And what would happen is that it would take num1 and square it, and then take that solution, which is also an integer, and put that into the placeholder. So I know I'm going to want to have to format with \n, and I will build it and test it now. So I enter a letter, I enter a double, I enter an integer, and it tells me the numbers I entered and the letter, and then it also takes this last part here, takes the square of that number and puts that solution into the placeholder in the printf statement.